Stand clear.
100% Wild podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Jury Outdoors 100% Wild podcast powered by DeerCast. This is episode number 355 on our way to 360.
Oh, hold on. And I'm a big boy.
For episode 360, what if you and I switch chairs?
That would be something.
Or I guess if it were, that's a 180. If it were a true 360, we'd end up in the same position.
All right. If you haven't figured it out by now, we don't have a guest this week.
What gave it away?
He's Tim Chelswick. I'm Matt Drury. And it's probably going to be a shorter episode. We're trying to crank one out before next episode.
So we can go do other stuff.
Yeah, we got real job. This is, believe it or not our job. We get to do this for fun.
People don't even know we do this.
Most people.
It's a rogue podcast.
That's right.
It's like a pirate radio station.
It's not your favorite outdoor podcast.
No, that's true. Yeah, which kind of makes me sad when people say how much they love the show. It's like, that's kind of going against our branding. Like, it's going to ruin our street cred.
Yeah, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Unless, actually, tell everybody. Tell your friends. Subscribe. Share. We actually do need that.
As long as they don't really like it. So yesterday I welcomed a whole bunch of more folks into the Rack Pack. And I just kind of asked the question, like, how many of these people actually have listened or watched the show before they jumped into the Rack Pack? Because every now and again you wonder, do people know what this is?
It's just a place to go.
And apparently they are listening and they are watching before they join.
That's right. We got a few.
Yeah. So we've got your normal show standards today, but we're also going to dip in and talk a little bit about Euro mounts, because it's a pretty cost-effective way to memorialize your deer from the year. And it's not really as hard as some people make it out to be, I think.
Well, so if you're watching the show, we have my deer from the Missouri firearm season here on set with us. My buddy Dan Burnett. He does all of my Euros, and he does a great job. He knocks them out for me. So anyways, I just got this one yesterday. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to kind of talk about that. And you've done it yourself several times, so you kind of know the process to go through. And I figured it'd be a good chance to there's probably quite a few people at this point in the season that have, their deer head and may not know what exactly they want to do with it yet. But, when you look at a shoulder mount, they're so expensive. I mean, they're anywhere from $600 to $800, in that ballpark. I'm sure there's some that's a little more affordable, but then you kind of wonder if you get what you pay for. It's not really something you want to go cheap on.
You do.
You would have got a deer that's smiling every time the eyes follow you every time you walk by it.
Old taxidermy is some of my favorite. Yeah. Like, they just put marbles in the eyes.
Go to Cracker Barrel and see some of this tomfoolery.
Yeah, so. Or a garage sale or something.
But honestly, Euro mounts anymore, I mean, it's kind of the fad of our time as far as what to do with the mount, because I mean, you see them, like, wives actually don't mind them too much for having that in decoration in your house somewhere. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of a cool look. So I don't know. I see a lot more people doing them.
The other thing, this works out well for me, is I think it accentuates, like, the ratio of rack size to width of the head is exaggerated on a Euro. So
that's what she said.
I was going to say, it's like shaving your private parts.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah, it looks huge. You know what I'm talking about.
We're talking about accentuating things this morning.
Yeah. So anyways.
So you've had yours done by a professional.
Well, I mean, he's really good. He's gotten great at it, but he's a firefighter by trade, and he's has a passion for doing this stuff on the side. Yeah. So he's gotten really, really good at it over the years. And he used some tips and tactics from our buddy over at what is it?
Skulls Millworks.
Yeah, Skulls Millworks. What's the guy's name? Will
Rollins.
Will Rollins.
Yep.
Who does a fantastic job. So he takes it a step further, and he'll actually do engravings into the skull. And, a cool paint, like I think mine was bronze, as yours was kind of a different look as well. So,
hey, Ben, do you mind going and getting my Oklahoma buck off my wall? We can we can do a little show and tell here of what Will has done.
So he takes it kind of to the next level. He definitely does. It's like a tattoo artist.
It's kind of like me. I'm always taking everything to the next
You're
level.
next level, all right.
Social discomfort.
So he's got some, I guess what he was doing that was different than what Dan originally was doing was something with the tip of the pressure washer, right?
I don't know.
I believe so. It was like a different, I don't know, to allow
different nozzle.
Different nozzle. Here you go.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So if you're listening, I'm bringing.
If you're watching, you can see it.
Yeah. So go watch this show. But you see, like Will does all this great engraving on the skull. So this was my first firearms deer. So he engraved the DoD DeerCast logo in there, and he put the bottom part of the cartridge of the bullet that I shot him with, and
which is a cool effect.
Yeah, and did some kind of like I don't even know what you would call this. It's like he hit it with like some kind of black paint, but then rubbed some of the paint off, so it's got kind of a worn, textured look to it. But yeah, he does also that copper patina look,
which is what mine was.
Yeah, on yours, Matt. But it's really cool what he does, and it's just a nice way to further personalize. Yeah, personalize the Euro. But so what Will, because I've been doing Euro mounts for a few years. Well, probably 10 years now. And I've made some mistakes along the way. One of the mistakes I made was I was burying my skulls and letting kind of the natural process take away the flesh and stuff.
Which is one way to do it, but that takes a long time too, doesn't it?
It does, especially if you kill a deer in November or December somewhere in the Midwest. There's not a whole lot of biologic activity happening in the topsoil to remove that. The other thing is, so not only is time an issue, but you're also staining the bone with the dirt.
Yeah, there's a brown. It comes off looking a little.
Yeah. So what Will suggested, he's like, never bury them. But if you obviously you want to take a knife and flesh, get all the flesh off, get all the hide off the skull, as soon as you can, get the eyes out, get the tongue out, like physically remove all the material that you can as soon as you can before it gets tough. But then he said that he gets like a turkey, like a roasting pan, you'd find at a church potluck dinner or something, because you don't want to boil like that. That's the main mistake most people make is they boil their skulls, and that, like, you think about if you boil stew or something, it just softens everything in there. You don't want to soften and weaken the bone. So he said you use that roasting pan and you just get it up to where it's just below boiling, and you're essentially kind of slow cooking the meat off of, like, the rest of the tissue off of the skull. And you can get like a coat hanger and twist it and put it up in the brain cavity, and even put it into a drill bit or put it into a power drill and kind of just whip out the brain matter. Yeah. It's all about getting the tissue off as quickly and cleanly as you can.
So I feel like,
guys,
what?
Real quick, your Euro mounts are lovely, but they are covering your faces where you move them to. Yours too, Matt. Tim, is right in the middle of your face.
Is mine better now?
Yes.
Okay.
And then,
sorry, I didn't even think about that. I was trying to move it over.
You're good.
Just to give him some room.
That's not good.
I just didn't want to keep cutting to those angles while they were like right there.
Matt, never interrupt us
again.
That any
better?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'll let you guys have the rest of the show.
Appreciate that.
All right. But so when I think about it, though, I always see people boiling them. So you're saying don't do that at all?
Don't do that. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I always see that on social media. Hey, a guy's got a rack in a vat of boiling water.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Especially like the turbinates, like all these really paper thin bones that are in the nose.
Yeah.
Those are the first things to go.
What'd you call it?
Turbinates.
It's a lot of turbulence in there.
There are.
Very turbulent times.
So definitely. And the other thing is, you can use a power washer on them to help kind of flesh them after you've removed the hide. But you do have to be careful about those really paper thin membrane bones in the nasal cavity, because you can break those up.
I'm kind of blown away that you're saying that you don't boil it at all. I mean, that's all I think I've ever seen.
Yep. And that's what Will said. He's like, everyone does it, but it weakens the bone. And then you also run the risk of like cooking the fat that is in the tissue into the bone. So he said, use a little bit of Dawn dish soap in your hot water bath as you're working on it.
So that broaster you were talking about, you're just putting hot water, little Dawn dish soap, you're setting it in there. Are you just kind of letting it soak for a little while, or what do we?
You're essentially getting to the point where the flesh that's remaining is falling off. Yeah. And you probably have to use a toothbrush or some kind of mechanical way of removing that tissue. And it may take 2 or 3 different changes of water each time, adding in a little Dawn dish soap to ensure that the fat doesn't cook into the bone.
So when do you break out the power washer?
So it would go like use a knife and take the hide off of it and do all the kind of like removing the brain, the eyes, the tongue, any of the bigger organs. And then once it's down to just the muscle and connective tissue, then you could use a power washer to try to remove some tissue, put it in the hot water bath, a couple changes of clean water, and see where it's at. And it might need another power washing after that. It just depends on how thorough of a job you did with the knife in the first place. But you can see, like, this is the thing. You can experiment and you can see just what it needs. The first time out is going to be kind of messy and you may make some mistakes, but it's like they're pretty self-evident. As long as you don't cook the bone and make it so soft that it's falling apart, there's really not much that you can't undo in this process. You just don't want to break bone. So
then how do you get to the point where you get the real white bleached look?
Well, so and I should take a step back, because when we talk about putting the skull in the hot water bath, you want to put some kind of rod across the top of the pan, or ensure the water is at a level where you're not also cooking like the pedicles, the bases of the antlers, because they can lose their coloration. Most guys don't want that, or you don't want a bunch of fat or that kind of scum that forms on the top of the water baking into the bone on the antler. But the whiteness comes from like the process. If you do it right and keep the fat out of the bone and don't bury it, don't get like dirt in the skull, it should be pretty white, kind of coming out of that last hot water dip. Probably not as white as yours is right there. Not as white as, and I did this Euro myself and then sent it to Will and he took it from there. But a hydrogen peroxide gel is kind of the next step.
Does that make it brittle?
No,
but
bleach will. And people think, some people just want to bleach the skull and that will like chemically degrade the bone. Hydrogen peroxide gel will not do that.
Okay.
And so you get like the cosmetic grade, and I don't remember what the percentage on that is, but you buy it for like in a big jug on Amazon from like a cosmetics retailer, and you essentially like paste it on with a brush, and you can cover it with paper towels, and that kind of keeps it moist and keeps it sucked to the skull. And I think like it depends on how white you want it, but I think I did 3 different coatings of hydrogen peroxide, like let it sit for 24 hours, then rinse it off and put another batch on, and you'll see it. Like you'll literally see a difference between each rinsing.
So start to finish, how many days are you talking in this process for you typically?
It could be 4 or 5, but
Okay.
I'm doing mine in between everything else. Like I'm not giving it my full attention. Like I'm doing it in steps.
Yeah. That's I love going to Dan, is it's usually pretty fast. Like it's a couple days, he's done.
Yeah. That's awesome. And guys that have dermestid beetles, that they can just drop it in a tank and these beetles go through and literally eat all the dead tissue off. Like that's probably the best way, because it's not physically traumatic to the skull. It's a very passive way of just removing all that tissue.
How long does that take?
I don't know. It probably depends on how many beetles a guy has, but it doesn't take long. Once you drop it in there, I would say maybe a day or 2. Guys that do this, I'm sure will chime in and let us know. But it doesn't take long. I think the difficult thing with dermestid beetles is just keeping them. like, because it's like having a pet. You got to feed them because unless you have like a backlog of skulls that you're doing, you got to keep them fed and taken care of.
If they got out and they're in your house and then you're the skull,
then you're divorced.
Like,
good
no,
thing,
thanks.
Good thing is I think they only eat dead tissue.
Oh, okay.
So
you'd have to be there for a while, like a cat lady or something.
Or some guy that's fused to his couch.
Yeah. Well, okay, cool. I just figured it'd be a good chance to, and I'm sure on YouTube we're going to get killed on comments, or there's going to be a bunch of different
Everyone
ways.
does it their own way.
I want to say that this is Tim's way. I have no idea how to do it. So if the comments are shitty, it's because Tim is.
and I'm guaranteeing this is the best and only way to do it. If you do it some other way, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Well, and I use the same process. You guys may not be able to see, but there's a euro of a turkey skull up there on the wall. And
I thought you were going to point to this deer. I'm like, you're full of shit.
I did that one. That one.
You, sir, have nothing to do with these big deer.
But you can tell the difference. Like that one was found dead, right?
Yeah.
So that's just a natural weathering process.
Yeah.
But that one over there to your right, that one has definitely been treated.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of
mine.
I
just realized that's when I killed.
But it's kind of cool. Yeah, like I said, it's very cost effective. A jug of that hydrogen peroxide is maybe $10 or $15. It's lasted me years. It could also be because I don't have a whole lot of bucks to euro right now.
Could be because I never kill anything.
Could be. But yeah, it's a neat thing to do. And then you just get one of these skull hookers and throw it on your wall. And they also don't take up as much space as a shoulder mount.
Well, and we have, they got tabletop skull hookers. They got these ones that you can mount on the wall, like you said, but they have these new ones where it far shoulder mounts that you can kind of mount them in the corner. So it doesn't take up as much space when you have shoulder mounts, and you can mount two in a corner. It's pretty cool looking. Neat. So yeah, I think that's something new they came out with.
Yeah, back when we used to have paper tags, I would write the confirmation number of the deer and shove it up inside the skull cavity there. Yeah. I just think it'd be neat. Like years from now, my grandkids are pulling one of grandpa's old deer off the wall, and they see like my handwritten note inside there.
Yeah, well, you see on this one, I have it zip zip tie has my tag in it, but I have that on like almost all mine.
Say Terry Drury?
Yeah, but I don't know. For some reason, I just it's like I feel like I better keep this with it. I don't know why I do, but I know you don't need to necessarily. But I just like to have the proof. Yeah, as if we don't have proof on TV.
Yeah. I think we have lost something a little bit with the app, especially like a lot of the DNRs have, or game commit, whatever, they have apps.
It's convenient.
It is super convenient, but I do miss having a paper tag, not that process of notching it. I do miss the old deer check stations.
Yeah.
Progress, but you lose a little bit in that process.
Yeah. So hopefully somebody got something out of that, and I figured it'd be just a nice little, this part of the season, people are trying to figure out what to do with their deer. So, and taxidermists by this point in the season are full. Like it's going to take a long time to get your deer back. Like this, even if you get I know tons of people obviously process their own meat and do that whole process. But I took this deer to a place called Woods in Bowling Green. And cause I've always heard great things. We were near there. So I've always heard great things about, what they make out of your deer. So anyways, I had a bunch of different stuff processed because the kids, they'll eat that.
Did they know what you mean when you say Oberly dog?
Well, I just call it all Oberly dog. So
like, there's a guy here who's wanting a bunch of Oberly dog from his deer.
Yeah, that's right. So, the part that was surprising to me is when I asked how long it would take, and the lady kind of smirked. She's like, I don't know, 3-4 months. I'm like, oh, shit.
This deer's going to be spoiled by then.
Yeah, I'll be eating it for turkey season. So
weird.
Yeah, I ordered a lot though. So maybe that was it. But it was also the second weekend of the gun season. And a ton of deer filtered through there. So that's most likely the reason. But anyways, I'm looking forward to trying it.
Heck yeah, me too.
You do. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to have enough to bring in. Do you process most of your own stuff, or will you go take some of it somewhere and have something made out of it?
This is not a point of pride. I just have never paid a processor to process my deer. And I got into brats, and I'll make summer sausage and jerky. Like that's about as far as I've gone with processing.
I mean, hey, I wish I did do it, but I don't know, man. It seems time consuming.
Oh yeah.
Well, and the fact that I don't know anything about it, mostly that.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely an education. In 1 year, I think I mentioned this before. Like I made big summer sausage logs. They're like 1.5 feet or 2 feet long. They're huge. And then I smoked them. So on top of I don't know how many hours it took to cure the meat and then stuff the casings and then cook them. They were awesome. Are you saying that because you made them, or were they actually? Listen, my brother, who is not a wild game connoisseur, loved them so much that he asked for one, and I was like, I don't mind. But then he further qualified it. He wanted one to give to one of his buddies as a Christmas present.
Nope. That, sir, is where you are cut off.
I was like, I can give you a portion of one, but I'm not going to give you a whole one to give away as a Christmas present.
Well, how many did you have?
Like 5 or 6.
Oh, okay. So,
and like the smoking process alone, I don't know. I think that took 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. So Dan Burnett, the guy that does the skulls for me, him and my cousin Waylon, it's my cousin Waylon's like really good friend. So anyways, they also do a lot of their own processing, and it's always awesome. Yeah. I mean, I love trying any of that, cause everybody's got their own little recipes or the twists on it. And you very rarely have a bad one. Try a bad one.
So I'm not a waterfowl hunter, but I killed a Canada goose a couple days ago, and I did, yeah, with the mission crossbow. There's a resident flock of them that live on one of the properties where I deer hunt.
So you just must kill them.
I want one for Christmas. So I really wanted to recreate the scene from the Christmas Story where they get the duck at the end and it's smiling at us. And so I went through and I plucked. my kid Bo got in trouble at school for saying
Really?
Yes.
Ouch.
I was like, I'm not mad at you.
No, it's a movie. Come on.
But I went through and I plucked. So I don't have like a great goose recipe, but I know this time of year they've got a little more fat on them, which is good. Like goose fat is good as opposed to most deer fat, which is pretty bitter. But so I'm like on the deck a couple nights ago at night, just ripping feathers off this thing, stuffing them in a bag. And, but at the end, I've got this. I mean, it's a great looking, it looks like something you would buy at a store almost.
I'll be damned.
But I did cut the head off because I didn't want to pluck feathers off the face. But
I have a lot of questions, but I'm not, I want to keep hearing what you did next.
Well, so I'm curious from our waterfowl hunters, because I don't know if I have kind of prepared him correctly.
What?
I went
you brine it, or what do you do?
I chopped up a bunch of onions and garlic and celery and put it in the body cavity along with some wild game seasoning. In the goose's body cavity.
Sorry. Keep going.
And then I rubbed the whole thing down in bacon grease. And then I hit that with barbecue seasoning. Then I wrapped it up. Well, I mean, this is a total experiment. I don't know if I'm doing this right, but I then wrapped it all.
Up a recipe?
No. I wrapped it up in saran wrap and put it in the freezer. I'm going to wait until closer to Christmas. And I don't know if I'm going to smoke it or just like bake it like you would a turkey. I don't know that I'll deep fry it because I've heard that
deep fry that sucker.
Geese are pretty rich as it is. So I don't know.
You scared it's going to be too tasty?
Too rich.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean by rich?
Like, if you've ever
when
had
I think
duck.
of rich, I think of chocolate. Greasy.
Yeah.
Okay. Alan's saying greasy.
Goose and duck are both, especially.
I knew that about duck.
Later in the season. So like a double grease scenario, that would be a really heavy meat.
Too much for Tim's little belly.
That's right. I have a little Squidward
Tim
bite.
Can't have grease. He works out.
The grease just lubricates your veins and everything.
That's right.
The blood moves around. So I'm sure there's a waterfowl hunter listening right now, just dying inside
about how we're talking. I've never had. I mean, I've had duck, and poppers and stuff like that, but I don't think I've ever had goose that I can think of.
Yeah, I've had it a couple times before where I've like arrowed one on my way to go try to kill a deer. It's always
just a bloodthirsty.
If I see something, I'm going to kill it.
Well, that's not true. I know that for a fact.
If I see it, it's dead.
Yeah.
Not so much.
That, sir, is a lie.
If you see it, it's got a good...
I believe you could go back a podcast and listen to...
It's hard to tell. I don't even know that our old podcasts are listenable at this point.
Well, no.
So I will report back closer to Christmas.
If it's worth a shit, bring a piece in and I'll try it.
Okay.
But if it's not, I don't
Maybe it'll give you the
it.
runs.
Yeah. Okay.
Miranda's at, what's wrong with you?
Oh, no.
Tim brought in some old
Just
goose.
another day at the house.
Oh, good times.
Oh, Dad's in the bathroom. Shocking.
Is
just getting away from you all.
that is the truth when you have kids. But even then, it's not always a guarantee you'll get privacy.
All right.
Our buddy Jim is asking us a question.
Is it Jim Richmond?
For our question of the day.
Is it?
No, it's not. But
because like he's right here.
You could have just asked us, Jim.
I'm right here, bud. Yeah. All right. So the question of the day is proudly brought to you by Sportsman's Channel. Sportsman's Channel, your home for Winchester and Drury's natural born, everything red, wild, and blue. For some reason, I was having a real problem saying Sportsman's Channel.
I struggle with it too.
Say it right now.
Sportsman's Crit.
There's not an S at the end of sportsman.
That's what I struggle with. I want to make it possessive all the time.
You are possessive. That's what Beth says. Very possessive.
It's true. Can't deny that.
So, Jim, let's hear. Jim? Oh, boy. Jim?
Okay, we'll hit you again, Jim.
When is the best time?
We're going to have to pipe that audio in after the fact, I think.
So Jim's asking, when's the best time to stop hunting your mock scrapes?
Well, I think they're kind of coming back around at this point in the season a little bit. So, I mean, there would have been, the last couple of weeks where they probably went cold. But just the other night I was out hunting and had a good 5-year-old buck come straight to the tree koi that Scott and I put out at Hot Corner, and it's got a mock scrape on it, and it wasn't tearing it up or anything, but it's also got a licking branch there. And I mean, it's just a hub for them. So yeah, I think actually now's the time of year. I was just talking to Terry about this, where they're starting to come back around and hitting the scrapes again. So, stop hunting them. There might be that period during the rut where they just don't work as well for you. But I'd say, I don't know, you might go back to hunting them.
Yeah, and I would say use your cameras as your guide. If you have some cameras up over scrapes, you can see. I mean, we know that deer use scrapes year round.
Yeah, just
way more frequently and to a larger extent during the fall, especially during the rut.
Yeah. Well, that's contradictory to so leading up to the rut, yes, but right there during that lockdown period, once they have their doesn't it kind of go cold for a little bit?
I could imagine deer that maybe don't have a buck that doesn't have a doe that he's tending could still stop by and see who's around, because there's also a communication factor.
Who's here?
I mean, I leave a little telephone number on a little card on my mock scrapes.
Yeah, well,
for a good time, call Janet.
Oh, Janet.
She's got a name. She's got an old name. But yeah, I'd continue, at least in the Midwest. I would let the cameras kind of be your guide, but there's no harm in continuing to hunt them.
Yeah. So, Jim, hopefully that answers your question. We basically said, go look at your cameras.
Yes.
Answer your own question.
And that's so much of deer hunting is you kind of some of the stuff you got to figure out on your own, based on what your deer are doing on your property. I
noticed during the rut, the juvenile deer, they'll still kind of mess around with them a little bit. And especially on most of ours scrapes, there's a licking branch right there. So it's not just some big scrape, there's a branch there. It's kind of a hub that they're all checking and just kind of seeing who's there in the area. But in general, the more mature bucks didn't really mess with them the previous couple weeks. And now they're starting to come back to where they're hitting a feeding pattern. They're not as much, obviously they're not really chasing as much. Now I'm talking Midwest. So down south, it's a little different, obviously wherever you're located, but here in the Midwest, Missouri, that's kind of what I was seeing is they're back to a feeding pattern. Like we're in Green Revisited right now. And last night we saw a ton of deer going straight to the oats. Some were hitting the beans. Obviously it was cold enough. So I think they're still, beans, if you got that late season food source is key. But anyways, they're kind of getting back into a patternable phase. And the rest of the season, it just gets better and better as far as patterning them over a food source if you have it. But to hit, if he's hunting the timber and he's hunting over a mock scrape, I'd say that's as good. I'm starting to see the mature bucks go back to the cameras and go back and check those scrapes again. So
you and I were talking about this yesterday. I found a new spot on one of my smaller properties where deer, like bucks, have been going to quite a bit that I've just kind of been overlooking.
Some really nice deer.
Yeah, I didn't have a camera there. I dropped one immediately. Like 6 hours later, I start getting pictures of mature bucks. But one of not only is it kind of advantageous for them as they travel, but there are honey locust trees back in there, and they're eating those seed pods. So there's not, there's some people's lawns around that I think they're eating clover out of, and there's maybe a few acorns left, but those honey locust pods, like I'm finding them on the ground, I'm finding them chewed up. And so like that's kind of a food source in the timber that the deer are keying in on that they weren't earlier in the year. Cause I think honey locust seed pods are probably not super nutritious, but
it's different than just a locust tree or what? I mean, I'm not familiar with that. A honey locust.
I think they're a type of locust tree. They've got the thorns on them, like the big thorns on them.
Yeah. So what's the seed pod look like?
It's like a long, kind of elongated, flat, like almost like a banana sized seed pod. They'll chew those up, and they're like seeds, like different segments in there that they're going after.
I see.
So every now and again, you'll see a deer like with one kind of chawing on it out of the side of its mouth. Looks like it's smoking a cigar.
Did I just blow your wildlife word of the day out? Is that what I did? Get ahead of us?
Not at all.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Tim. Let's get to it.
That's great improv. No, Matt.
Okay.
Silence.
Moving on.
I don't think so, Matt.
I don't think so, Tim.
All right. The wildlife word is made possible by DeerCast waypoints. Come in.
That was the wrong button.
No one's there. No one ever comes to visit. Dial in on late season deer by laying out your strategy with waypoints in your DeerCast maps. And that is something that I try to be really good about because I'm moving a lot of cameras around. I hung a few different stands, and I try not to get behind on where my waypoints are in real time. Like if I move something, I try to, because I've got so many cameras and stands at this point that I can't keep them straight in my head.
Oh, well, la-ti-da.
Must be nice, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty wealthy.
I have so many waypoints in a certain area that they don't work.
Matt has found the upper end of what DeerCast can handle as far as waypoints.
Like to mark it all. So, well, here's a good little fun fact. If you have the latest update, and it came out probably right before the fall started, the latest updates of DeerCast, you can now move your waypoints because I found annoying for especially trail cameras. You place a trail camera waypoint, and you know how it goes. You're moving them all around throughout the season. It might be 50 yards, but you're moving it. And instead of deleting it, and then
that
you could just hit the 3 dots. You click the waypoint, and I think it's
edit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, you click the waypoint, and now it just comes up.
I think it is on the bottom sheet.
Yeah. You click the waypoint, and then like a little menu bar pops up with some options, edit and delete and all that, share, and moves on there. So it allows you to just move it wherever you want. So that's a pretty handy little factoid about
especially
DeerCast.
For those of us who are indecisive.
For those of us that can't find a deer,
constantly shifting things around.
Maybe it's us, not the deer.
Maybe you're right. Okay, a whitetail has enzymes in its saliva that allow it to deactivate chemical compounds in their food that would otherwise prevent digestion, like the blanks in acorns. So whitetails have some kind of enzyme in their saliva that allows them to break down indigestible food matter.
Got it. Are you going to give us the options?
I will. Is it A, small larvae in acorns? B, human teeth in acorns? The C, the caps on acorns? or D, the tannins in acorns?
What's a tannin?
You're screwed, it sounds like. I don't know what these options mean, Tim.
I'm going to go with C, caps.
Okay.
I don't think they eat those, but maybe they do.
It is.
Seems pretty woody. If
It
they
is an Okie afterbirth. It is D, tannins.
Well, that's not even fair. I didn't know what tannin was.
Tannins was a wildlife word at one point.
Well, we've had 355 episodes. Sue me. I forgot
Okay.
one.
I will sue you, sir.
What's a tannin?
Tannin is a chemical compound in acorns and oak leaves that is super acidic. And it's literally the chemical compound that people like Native Americans and settlers and trappers use to tan hides.
I knew it. I friggin' knew it. I was going to say something to
you
do with
know it.
tanning something.
So should I still
Not
sue
the body. Well, listen, if you would have gave me
Listen
a hint, it would have helped. Okay.
you? No one told me this test was going to be
Where's-
hard.
Phone a friend.
Is that your final answer?
E, phone a friend.
Oh, crap. Which of your friends would you have called?
Scott, he's right there. He's
Scott
just
would've
raised his
known.
hand.
Yep.
He's a wealth of tannin information, he says.
Biff Tannen.
That's honestly, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Biff.
Yeah. I love Back to the Future.
Oh, it's the best.
Number 2 is the best.
No.
3 I could do
Oh
without.
my God. 2's the worst.
They go to the future.
That's 2
hoverboards.
is the worst.
80s cafe.
It's I mean, I love all 3, but 2's the worst
now
of the
I
3.
am going to sue you.
Come on.
I will.
1's the
I'm gonna
best.
call my lawyer right
I'm
now.
going to debate. All right. Next week, we get into Star Wars trilogies.
People are already tuning out. Okay, we got a shout out from Jim Bello in the Rack Pack.
Oh, Jimmy.
Jim says that Matt and Tim are both serious but lighthearted and know the hunt is more about the experience than the harvest.
Thank God.
God.
No doubt.
That is so true. Add in Mark and Terry and their knowledge, and it's a winner.
I love that when I read these people that are getting into the Rack Pack and their comment about what their favorite thing, it's almost always, we're funny, Mark and Terry are knowledgeable.
Matt and Tim try really hard.
I love Matt and Tim's struggles. I can relate.
Here's what we can
Hey, that's
contribute.
great. So,
Failure.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had somebody in the Rack Pack the other day said something and to the effect of, I didn't kill a deer. Like he didn't kill a deer like me and you or something like that. And
I'm more like you.
I said, well, that's where we're different. I now have killed a deer.
Wow.
I put a picture of the deer in there.
Immediately turned
I
on
went
us.
real petty.
I'm right there with you. Like, as soon as I kill a deer, I'm going to be
Stick
like,
a finger in a lot of people's chests.
I'll be calling Mark asking, hey, do you need any advice on deer hunting?
Well, little fun fact. I should have killed like 5 deer by now this year. It's not that I can't get near them.
You've taught him some lessons.
Yeah.
Valuable lessons.
Yeah.
Don't walk near that blind.
So the Kansas deer, he has, he showed back up on camera, but it's been about 10 days. I was going to try to go back out there and finish the deal, but
could have been a resurrecting, self-replicating.
he's disappeared here
Frankendeer.
again. So, because that season started back up tomorrow, I think tomorrow. So when this airs, the day it airs probably, but he's disappeared. So I don't know that I'm going back out there, but anyways, we looked at the muzzleloader and I had to enlist the help of Forrest. He's like a real crack shot. And I was like, what's going on with this gun? I cannot figure it out.
You're holding it backwards.
The mount on the scope was just a touch loose. So I think after shooting it's been on for, I've had that gun probably 3 or 4 years at least. And I think just over time it loosened up. And so even though it shot well for me, leading into the hunt,
that last shot you took
it's
prior
right.
to the hunt could have been the one that threw it off.
Who knows? And so just very unfortunate. But that's why it shot 8 inches high. He was like, I can't get it to pattern. And then Dad's like, oh, maybe it sounds like the mount's loose.
Mhm.
And they checked it, and sure enough. So
Cautionary tale.
well, it is. You check. I thought I checked the equipment. It's like I shot it. I shot just like I did the year before. It was relatively on within, 100 yards. I'd say within, I don't know, a 3-inch radius.
Yeah.
Not terrible. 4. So I thought good enough, but
A guy I know
Not.
told me about his rifle season experience. He shot at a deer 3 times and missed it at like 70 yards. He was like, well, the night before the opener, I didn't have an optic on my deer rifle.
oh my
So I
goodness.
just took one off my AR and it mounted onto my rifle, my deer rifle, and it was shooting straight on my AR. So I figured it'd be pretty close. I was like,
is this a friend of yours?
Are you serious? Like, did you even try to like bore sight it or anything? He's like, no, I just figured it'd be about the same.
What?
I was like, well, you missed your deer 3 times. So
you're dumb.
It's not even
this guy listen to the
ethical.
Podcast?
No.
Okay.
He's
Is this a church
one
goer?
of those guys that just kind of
your church friends.
He is.
Aha.
Yeah. I don't know how that's correlated.
It doesn't. I just think this is
He
somebody.
believes in Jesus. Well,
No, I'm just saying this guy isn't within your hunting circle necessarily.
no, he's hunting
He's
adjacent.
just an acquaintance that you met at church.
But it's tough for me.
Don't send us messages. I didn't mean it like that.
Here's the headline, everybody. It drives me nuts because like as bow hunters, like we're out there since September, like we're out there year round doing stuff and trying to get within 20 yards of a deer. And then you got someone slapping on an optic the night before they go hunt. And
it's no offense to gun hunters, but sometimes it's just that it's a different
very
kind of casual hunter.
Yes. Yeah.
Can be. And I love the gun season because it allows me to catch up to all the deer that's right, that I sucked at during the bow season. So,
man.
All right. Well, speaking of casual hunters, let's get into the rack pack. Let's see who we got this week. So if you haven't joined by now, you're losing out, you're missing out. Go over to Facebook, check into the Rack Pack Dreary Outdoors 100% Wild Rack Pack. It's a private Facebook group where we just have a bunch of cool guys and gals talking about deer hunting, turkey hunting, whatever.
Yeah.
It's fun. We make fun of people.
Make fun with people.
Actually, mostly we're just congratulating people on their harvest. It's cool.
Nice deer.
I try to congratulate everyone I see because there's some giants that
doing a good job of it.
All right. So we got some new members this week. Joe Carson, Tyler Perkins, Josh Patterson, Gerald Morse, Wyatt Fannin, Gus Stidham.
Nearly killed him.
Dan Reeves. Wasn't he a coach for the Buffalo Bills?
Yes.
Irvin Esch.
Also a coach for the Bills.
JT Rovang.
Also a coach.
Timmy J. Wade. Tiffits Brown. It's down. You're really struggling to put in a fake name this week.
I make no apologies.
Tiffits Brown. It's down. So his middle name is Brown. Or else it was someone, Tiffits Brown, who hyphenated. If you would have put a hyphen there, it would have been more believable.
Crap.
Tiffits Brown, it's down.
You know what? There was a hyphen. I just forgot to put it in.
Huh.
Look at
That's
that.
the fake name this week. Tiffits Brown, it's down.
What is a Tiffits?
You know, you told me last week in the podcast I shouldn't just admit everybody into the Facebook group, that I should look at their profiles and make sure they weren't fake.
Yep.
I did see one fake. It was a girl. One fake girl who was very, I think, sexually proactive in her home life.
Oh.
At least based on her pictures.
No one has said those words in that sequence
Alan's.
in the history of mankind.
Yeah. So she got denied. We can't have that in the rack pack.
Clearly, this is not a fan of our show.
We can't have any of those people in the rack pack.
Doesn't pass the sniff test. Yeah.
This doesn't seem right.
Braithar Kumaranchi.
Haven't seen any of those yet.
Yeah. I usually try to do a little background check-in.
Yeah.
Making sure we're not.
If they answer the question, I feel like they're real. I mean,
but yeah,
most of them say Matt's more handsome than Tim.
Yeah. And most of them are dudes.
Admittance.
So if you're comfortable with that,
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Hey,
take what you can get, I guess.
Exactly. It's a compliment. The one that hurts is when it says neither.
Yes.
Ooh. I did see one that said Tim the other day. You got one?
Yeah.
I don't know why you have that question.
Because I qualify it with not that it's a competition. Because to me, that's always funny because anyone that says that immediately means like, hey, this is really important to me.
So, hey, just so you know, you're losing. All that working out hadn't helped you.
All those dudes that don't find me attractive, man.
Hey,
I'm putting out the wrong vibe.
I'm sorry, Tim, but it counts.
Oh man, we ought to close her down. Well, hopefully you guys are having some late season success here. It's hard to believe we're seeing Christmas trees and still deer hunting. Like the season has gone by so quickly.
Yeah. So if you have a late season food source, I'd probably start thinking about putting some more cameras. If you got a couple cameras, I'd probably surround your food source, and then you have a better idea what's coming out there and when. We're doing the same thing. Scott just went out a little bit ahead of me yesterday and moved a bunch of cameras that we had set up from the rut into kind of a late season mode. And all of a sudden, boom, we got tons of pictures. Yeah. Yeah. We got tons of pictures overnight. So
yes. All right. Well, we'll try to get a guest for our next episode.
I'm not going to say that actually.
No, we're not going to promise anything.
Actually, we do have a guest for the next episode.
Oh, we do have a big guest.
Yeah, we do.
In physical stature, too.
And they're going to be in studio.
Wow.
And I freaking have worked on this one for like a long time and rescheduling. And then I got sick and I had to reschedule it again.
Should we leave the Euros where they are when he's on?
Yeah. Block his face the whole time. I can't wait to have this guy
behind
on.
our success.
This is very much a type A guy. And, well, hell, we'll just say. So we got First Farms president, Sal Frisella. And so he's the kind of connection here. We've been kind of acquaintances for, I don't know, a good 4 or 5 years. But Kyle McClellan, who is a longtime Drury Outdoors team member.
Also a baseball man.
Yeah, he was a former major league pitcher. Him and Sal are good buddies, and we're on in the minors together in the Cardinal organization together. And Sal had this horrific injury that kind of basically stopped his career, and his path from there on has been very, very interesting. He's a very motivating guy. If you don't follow him on Instagram, you ought to. He's a very motivational guy, but especially if you're a dad, a family guy, there's a lot of good lessons in there. Motivational speaker, I'd say. I think, leader of people. His company's just unbelievably large.
Yeah.
The growth that they've had in the last 5 years has been incredible. So anyways, he's had a journey into hunting, and he went just this weekend. Him and his son, Kyle, took him out a couple of days, and they've had some interesting stuff happen to him while they were out there. So look forward to diving into that. And in general, just kind of talking to the man about his journey. He's a very interesting guy.
Heck yeah. Yeah. So make sure you tune into that one.
Yeah.
Tell your friends, subscribe,
right.
leave a review.
Yeah. Subscribe for sure.
All that kind of good stuff.
Till next time. Peace out.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DoD TV is brought to you by DeerCast. Prep, predict, and pursue your target buck.